Welcome, party people. Welcome to CyberSoul podcast with me, Jamie Murphy. Really looking forward to today. We've got fantastic guest, Jayne Hancock. Jayne, I'm not saying there's a hidden gem, but rarely does things like this. In fact, I've not really seen her post on social media. She occasionally pops up with some family bits on Facebook, but for me it's a real treat and honour to have a conversation with her today. I was lucky enough to work with her early in my career. She's a hugely inspirational salesperson, woman, mother, and just delighted to be able to talk to her. And I think we'll all gain a little bit of something from Jayne, who's had a wonderful career. You looking forward to it?
Yeah,
I know you're nervous, Jayne.
I am. This is quite out of my comfort zone, but thanks for having me and thanks for the build-up.
Oh, it's a big drum roll.
Really appreciate that.
Big drum roll, no problem.
Thank you so much. So yeah, for those that don't know me, and great to see you, Jamie. I'm Jayne Hancock, mother of two amazing children. I've been married for over 10 years to a great husband and got a little border terrier, Ted, my third child that I never had. And as you mentioned, I've been in the industry for a little while now. So, yeah, without revealing my age, definitely
Never reveal your age.
Over 20 years. And I suppose I joined the industry when it was just forming, really. So it was kind of, it was... I was basically in an industry that just didn't exist. No, nobody really wanted to buy.
That was the fun bit. That was a fun bit. But and we'll come back to that. But I'm really interested to hear from you about you, about where did it start for you? How did it all begin?
So I suppose it began by accident, really. So I didn't take a conventional route into my career, really. I suppose I did my A-levels.
Where did you do that, Jayne? Whereabouts were you based?
I've always lived, as you can probably tell from my dulcet tones, in the northwest in Cheshire, fairly close to Manchester. I originally kind of went to school around there. I grew up with my mum and my gran for the first kind of 11 years of my life. And then my stepfather kind of joined the family and I suppose showed me more of what corporate life could be. He worked at what was ICL at the time, and I can remember having my summer jobs at ICL in those early years, which gave me some exposure there. So I kind of went on after school to do my A-levels, and I decided actually I'd like to do a little bit of travelling before I potentially go to university, although I think I knew early on that I didn't want to follow the academic route.
What did you like at school? What were you passionate about?
I think I was really passionate about English, communication studies, French, and really it was more around the teachers than it was around the subjects. It was anybody who could instill that passion and energy and, had that real love for their subject. That's what I really felt.
Those are lessons that, I agree. I mean, those are lessons that I remember going into and buzzing about. Actually, it wasn't, you're right, it wasn't around necessarily. I mean, I was crap at German, but my German teacher was fun, was great, and I'd look forward to that, and I probably tried a bit harder.
Yeah, exactly. It really kind of makes you want to actually put the effort in, really. And I think that has flowed through my career, really. The owners and the managers that have that passion, you really want to do a good job for them as well. So yeah, I did a little bit of travelling, fortunate to have some relatives abroad. So
where did you go?
Went to South Africa and did all the safari things, which was fun, around the Kruger National Park, and across to Cape Town and saw some of life out there, which was different and interesting. And I recommend that to anybody, whether it's straight after school or throughout the career, to take that little break and see other cultures. So when I came back, I got a summer contract job in a recruitment company. So
That's where it all started.
that's where it all started. So I think that for me gave me that initial passion for selling, and actually for earning as well. You know, having that independence, and what should have been a 3-month contract position before I either took a uni position or move on. They offered me my first job as a junior salesperson. So yeah, so that's where it all began. And yeah, I recommend recruitment to anybody out there. It certainly gives you, I suppose, that resilience and you know, that kind of that cadence really that you need.
And you have to make that your own. You're as successful as the own in terms of the output as what you put in, and that there's a direct correlation to your results for the effort that you put in, isn't there? I guess. And
yeah, definitely. It's a very hard industry, really. It's and particularly in contract, because one, you've got to find those opportunities, but two, you've also got to secure the candidate to accept your position, and it's a very fast-paced environment, really. And so you've got to be, you know, it's hard work. You've got to be resilient because there's a lot of rejection in that world, but it's brilliant grounding.
It's a great industry to you know, as a point of reference. It's a good industry, you think, to sort of, you know, get some of the basics in place around selling and maybe starting a career there.
Yeah, definitely. So that happened for four or so years, and I then I decided it was time to kind of move to the next sales position, really. And I spotted a small ad, insignificant kind of ad.
Was it in a newspaper?
I think it might have been at the time.
I love an ad in a newspaper.
I think it was. This is going back nearly 20 years, for a company called E03, and I went to see this company in Cheshire in this little office, and this company was no more than 10 at most. But I met two really interesting people called Tony Bolland and Charles Sharland, who they are now serial entrepreneurs. They've formed and sold many companies now. And they kind of formed E03, which originally was a Citrix company, but then started to deliver their Citrix Thin Client technology across secure VPNs.
Right.
And they brought Checkpoint into the European market.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how their security business started, and then suddenly exploded, just absolutely exploded.
Phenomenal time, and actually, when I look back, I was probably more in the internet side necessarily. Sounds like you're in the security side. What was it like being at the foundation of a new industry?
It was, I'd say it was exciting. It was also very challenging, because you're having to convince particularly senior execs that they need funding for something that frankly they didn't think they had a problem with. You know, they said we don't have any security issues. So it's trying to convince them that you don't have any security issues that you know about, you know, and actually, you know, convincing them and showing them technology that would show that actually they did have a problem. They just weren't aware they had an issue.
Yeah.
So this is in the day where we were catching employees at work, accessing, you know, frankly, material they shouldn't be accessing. And like, obviously it's a lot more savvy now, the workplace, but in those days it was very early days.
Classic physical type of behaviours that were happening.
Yeah.
Interesting link between the objection handling that you probably face. Do you feel that the recruitment aspect of it, because I remember that you're having to almost, we call it FUD, or, you know, fear, uncertainty and doubt, which is not always a great way to sell, but you have to sort of reveal the challenge if they don't know what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose it was more about the challenges and the potential breaches, and obviously things like vicarious liability, that, you know, owners are accountable if a company is breached and, you know, customer data. But it was more around that sort of sell, rather than today it's more about, you know, not only that side, but also about, you know, the business side can be accelerated by using security in the right way, whether it be a new mobile app for banking, you know, like I remember Text by Banking when it was first launched, and we probably brilliant, you know, and paying checkbooks into different bank accounts and the security around that, you know, that's the more interesting side for me. I love the business aspects to security because it is a very technical world, really, but I love the business benefits that it brings, really. So
for sure, and I think that's like a dream. It would have been a dream back then to have the business backing behind it there is there today.
Yeah,
for sure,
definitely. But yeah, that whole growth for eSoft, and they became Vistorm and sold eventually to HP, and they are now part of the DXC business. So they've seen a great growth to, you know, what is quite a big part of the DXC business now. So that was a really...
That's a journey, isn't it?
That is a journey, and that was I look back with huge fondness at that part of my career.
And, you know, knowing you as well as I do, you know, you incredibly humble, incredibly modest, but incredibly competitive. and I love that trait. It's just, you know, because getting that balance right is just either something you can be authentic about and do, and you're 100% authentic. Were those traits there in the eSoft Vistorm days? Did you come in going, right, I want to be the best I can possibly be, but also you want to lead? What was your mentality back then?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky to have really good mentors in that early stage, especially with the likes of Tony Bolland, who really showed me the way, you know, and honed some of those skills that I'd learned in recruitment.
The rawness, yeah.
You know, that rawness and putting that into a more professional, you know, form, really. And I think that competitiveness and that inner desire to do well has always been there. But it certainly grew over time as well. You know, the more confident I got in my own abilities, the more I wanted to be successful. Although, as you know, I'm quite introverted as a person, so
Most
I
definitely.
kind of, which is another thing, you know. I suppose for people out there who are more introverted, you know, my advice is that you don't need to be the loudest in the room to be a salesperson. You know, I'm quite, as you know, quite analytical and detailed behind the scenes, and kind of
don't show it, but you know it's all going on.
Yeah, so I'm quite different in, you know, I know companies run personality profiling. I'm quite a different hire, I suppose, in that sense. But
it's funny because I remember doing something at Integralis. Knowing you probably found an excuse, and weren't there because you were famous. You were famous for that, Jayne. That's one thing. Sorry, you know. But we did like a personality trait assessment.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, for some insecure reason, for my part, being almost desperate to be the high flyer and like wanting to be that person that you said, that absolute extrovert. And I think the assessment sort of came up that I'm actually, they called it an artist. And it is somebody who's more creative and sits back a little bit, lets allow people to talk, and then that's unbelievable saying it now. But I definitely feel more comfortable in that vein. And as I've got older, running my own businesses, I'm quite happy to, as people, I'm an extrovert. Well, I'm confident, but it's finding that balance.
Yeah, and you've let music be one of your creative outlets as well, haven't you?
It's very important to me. Jayne, you talked really passionately about your early cyber career at eSoft, Vistorm, but I'm interested to know a little bit more around your passions that you had at that time. Tell me a little bit more.
And I suppose they've not really changed a lot over time, really. You know, I love spending time with my family and friends, and obviously I've got my own family now, so they're at the heart and centre of that. But I love being outdoors. You know, that's kind of what makes me tick. You know, whether it be walking on the beach, in the hills, whether it be snowboarding, or now skiing, Jamie, down a mountain with the kids kind of waiting for me now.
Kicking your butt.
Yeah, exactly. But anything outdoors, and holidays are really important to me because we all work hard, but I think it's so important to have that family time, that quality family time as well. And for me, you know, the holidays are crucial, really. I'm not one who has any holidays left at the end of the year.
talked about eSoft and Vicestorm. How did you use that as a platform to move forward in your life? And where did you go next?
So where I went next was I went travelling again. I
Again?
was at a successful point in my career, but I thought before I settle down, have the family, I'd like to do another travelling stint. So I travelled 14 months around the globe, so various continents, a few
I
highlights,
am
I
so
suppose.
jealous of that.
Yeah,
That's one I didn't know that either. That's
Really?
brilliant. And what was your
Yeah.
favourite continent on the travels and why?
There's a few little highlights. South America was really interesting, culturally very, very different,
Yeah.
very diverse. Obviously, you've got the Amazon, you've got Peru with the Inca Trail, but also there's a couple more highlights that I also climbed Kilimanjaro in Africa, and that was quite an emotional moment.
Wow, that's
to
amazing.
Um,
A real challenge?
Yeah, definitely. That last day, with the extra height is quite. People obviously can deal with altitude in different ways, but it was quite physically a challenge.
Incredible.
And I'm not the fittest of. I've never been the fittest of people, so.
Wow, that
So
I
yeah,
mean,
it was kind of.
testament to you for
And,
getting that done.
And at the time, it still had the snow and the ice caps, which unfortunately is retreating every year. So I was fortunate enough to see some of that. So that was my next move, and then
All guns blazing for the next corporate journey.
yeah,
So talk me a little bit through around and what happened.
which kind of led me to another fairly small company called Integralis, which is where you and I
Yeah.
know each other from. So yeah, gosh, and I spent 14 years with Integralis, and towards the end they got acquired by NTT and merged with Dimension Data. But yeah, 14 years is a long time.
It is a long time, and you must have enjoyed at least some of it.
Yeah.
What for you in terms of that business? What worked for you? Because I mean, you talk really fondly 4 years at eSoft Vicestorm, but that was 4 years. What kept you for those 14 years, and what were the top 3 things you think that worked for you?
Yeah, I think it's seen Integralis go through such phenomenal growth in that time. And we almost formed their business. There was very little service maturity when we joined. We were almost building that as we went along, but we managed to secure some really big brands and seeing
Incredible.
some of those smaller wins to large banks and large service providers come on board. So seeing that journey was actually really nice to be part of that, and I suppose you and I were a key part of that journey. So it was really.
It was an interesting place, and because I met so many people in that business. I met people prior to that, but when I look back, the level of quality that went through that business, that was at that business, was incredible. And I think what you described there is the ability to be entrepreneurial and creative. That kept me there for 9 years.
Yeah.
And what you described there fits the bill perfectly.
Yeah, and I think they gave us lots of support. As you say, they gave us the freedom to develop and grow our business, but they were also very supportive, and we brought in extra staff when we needed it, and I think, and we formed quite a successful managed service business, and that was, unlike today where you've got service providers, you've got the IBMs, etc., all joining the cyber world. We were kind of creating that market, and there wasn't really that level of competition at the time. It was, and to have quite a successful managed service business in that time was quite unique, really.
Jayne, great to talk about the Integralis and NTT period. Where are you at the moment, and bring us up to speed.
So I've just spent 4 years working for Cisco. So it's my first vendor gig, as it were, after spending 18 years within kind of cyber integration and managed services. So it's been an interesting journey, quite a different one. I've never really been on the vendor side before, but Cisco is a great company, great culture, led by Chuck, who's got a great management team. So one of the reasons I was attracted to Cisco was around their flexibility, very supportive of working parents, and you know, there is a really good positive culture over there. And the only reason that I'm moving roles is to go back to my systems integration and managed service background. So recently joined Computer Centre, so early days, really feel like I've come home. So yeah.
I've spoken before, I've posted before, you know, I've got strong feeling for Computer Centre. I think they've got a great culture, a modern version of the culture. I think they've, you know, modernised with where they're at. Yeah, there's a great bunch of people over there. Big shout out to that.
Yeah,
all to my friends over there.
Yeah, definitely. So
I'm sure you'll
looking
smash
forward
it out
to
the
this
park.
journey. Yeah, really
Make some money, have some fun, do some deals, and meet some great people. That's what it's all about.
Definitely.
The interesting bit, and it is a great story and a great journey that you know you've been on. One of the things that was massively apparent and was, you know, the lack of females in the industry, which you would have been even more obviously aware of. I'm blessed. I've worked with actually as 25 years tons of great women, but in that sort of my earlier sales career, there was certainly less around. I'd be interested to hear your observation around the journey for you from a personal perspective, being a woman, and also externally looking into that question as well.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a journey. You know, 20 plus years ago, there was very few women in the industry, both at a sales level and a technical level. Very few, you know, could count on one hand.
I remember you and Caroline, you know, at the time.
Absolutely, yeah, and we were two of the few at the time. And, you know, biases definitely existed quite strongly then, I would say. Not always, you know, there's definitely exceptions to that. And I think those biases have changed, or certainly got less and less, but they're still around, definitely.
Did it stop you achieving what you wanted to do back then when things were maybe that bias was strong?
No.
I thought you might say that. I
think it's just learning to navigate, you know, the people with the bias and either pair them with the right individual where they are going to, I suppose, work with that person. You know, it's being that conductor and putting the right people with, you know, the right people you're going to get the right response from. Or, you know, you kind of learn to do business in other areas, you know. So in some cases the bias was too strong. But I think now, you know, there's definitely people who are a lot more open. I think people are a lot more aware as well around gender and gender equality, so sometimes they may hide that bias a little more.
Does that turn the dial up the wrong way in some regard, where you can put things up that might actually hide the true feeling, you know?
Yeah, and I think I'm a good one in terms of instinct.
Yeah,
I can sense.
You could smell the old BS a mile away.
Yeah, I can kind of, you know, sense that that's still there. You know, Jane Franklin's written a great book on gender bias, the insecurity. It's well worth any females coming into this industry to take a read. She's a great, intelligent woman and writes about this in detail, and I found that quite helpful.
Okay,
because I could
that's
relate,
a good point of reference.
You know, a lot to the experiences that she'd had, and I've seen exactly the same ones in my working life. But it's, you know, it all comes down to education, doesn't it? And starting early, you know, even down in schools, you know, the teacher biases are still there, you know, putting their own stereotypical views onto, you know, young children in school. So it's really changing that mindset.
I think we call it the grassroots level if it was football, because you've got to do the coaching early in that regard. So
yeah, definitely. And also getting across that security isn't this dark kind of hooded, you know, hacker kind of community, although those personalities exist.
They do,
you know,
exist still.
It comes in so many different forms, you know, from I'm not technical at all, you know, and I've got no desire to be. I'm interested in how this is going to improve somebody's business and, you know, protect our information and financial records. But, you know, it comes in all forms, you know, from risk to sales to technical to customer success. So it's, you know, I want this to be an attractive industry for females to join, and not to think, oh, this is a very dark technical world, because, you know, that's just one aspect. So I think just getting that education out there as well, and,
Yeah.
you know, having more kind of apprenticeship programs for not just females, but for young.
Yeah, I think
Young
actually
professionals.
seeing sales as a business career rather than the technical, as you say, with it, or the technical, the short-termism that is viewed around sales generally,
Yeah,
and actually having an authentic business conversation relationship is probably, well, most customers I find, or people in general, want to be treated like people, with respect,
yeah,
with courtesy, and honesty, and then with that comes trust, and
yeah,
rather than, I think, maybe trying to do the short-termism sell of
yeah.
our thing will fix your problem, or it's very boring.
Well,
it's not.
you've raised the most important point of our industry, really. The whole industry is built on trust. You know, it's one of the few industries that it's very rare you get an overnight huge successful deal. It's generally built on small engagements that you build that trust, and, you know, they start to suddenly want to, you know, outsource all their security to you. They don't tend to do that to somebody they've never met before. That tends to be, you've had some trusted projects, you've delivered them well, and, you know, they've learned to trust that even when things go wrong, and technology invariably goes wrong, you know, we've all been in those, you know, 2 a.m. calls, and it's how
Yeah,
you respond to them,
and
isn't
then
it?
that's a good little segue, because we've talked very positively about your career and what you've done. Of course, you have been, but you know, what's the biggest cock up? There must have been. I love hearing about a cock up. I've made millions.
Oh
So,
my word, there's so many.
yeah.
There is so many.
What's your favourite?
Oh gosh, favourite.
Well, yeah, well, my
Yeah,
favourite probably.
there's so many, you know, where presentations haven't gone well, and, you know, frankly, they've been embarrassing in my early career. Some of them, to not really in my early years understanding the political landscapes of accounts. You know, I think that was a common mistake to make, where, you know, you avoid one of the influencers who might not have the big title, and that's cost me dearly. You know, that's happened certainly a number of times in my early career, and yeah, and I suppose you learn quickly
Yeah.
to not respond to RFPs that you know nothing about.
No,
You know?
the old
When you-
placebo RFPs. Yeah.
Absolutely, because you in those early years you're striving to have those positive conversations, and I used to call it happy years, where, you know, you hear that positive engagement, but unless you're deeply engaged in those processes, then, you know,
Totally.
frankly, it's a waste of time.
Totally, and it's important that you learn from them. And I've talked before on the podcast around mentor, or mentorship, and it's, you know, I'm not 100% convinced on. My opinion doesn't count. It's just my opinion. In a traditional form, I think mentorship actually is formed from, you know, from a number of different sources
Yes.
over a longer period of time. Previous guests have actually also said the best mentors are the ones you don't even know you're getting as a mentor,
Yeah,
and you only understand in retrospect.
yeah.
With some of the great people. Tell me a little bit about your feelings around that, and the things that you've picked up, and the people that you've worked with that have given you that sort of help, sort of shape and mould you into.
Yeah, I think there's been, so I don't have any particular famous people that I follow as my ideal, you know, kind of person to look up to, but it's been people that have been closely in my life. My
Yeah.
gran was a huge influence to me. Huge, you know, she was with me every step of the way with my mum for the first 11 years of my life.
Yeah.
And she taught me, I suppose, the value of working really hard. And if you put the effort in, you will reap the reward of that. She also taught me to never buy things on HP. So I still don't have credit cards, but that's just a little
I love that little thing there.
But
Don't buy anything on credit.
no, but yeah, she had a massive, real strong woman, but very caring and kind and intelligent.
Oh, she
and,
sounds fantastic.
yeah, my mum was really gentle and soft, so she had more the softer traits and things. So they definitely had huge impacts on my life. But then as I went into my kind of career phases, you know, we've talked about the likes of Tony and Charlie, those entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
you know, they really
Trailblazers,
shaped,
really, in that regard.
huge impact on, you know, I was passionate about selling and wanted to do a good job for the customer, and the importance of, you know, if things are broken, you need to fix them, you need to get involved and turn that into a success. Well, that's how the best relationships are built, you know, on, you know, hard times, and kind of, you know, they taught me all of that, so they had a massive impact. And then there's been individuals along the way where, you know, my success isn't just down to me, you know, it is down to generally a team. Generally there'll be some brilliant technical people as part of that. You know, in my early years, Lee Field, we all remember Lee, who's now very successful at APAC. And more recently, people like Steve Faulkner, you know, very creative.
Big shout out to Stevie Faulkner.
Big shout out to Steve. You know, he's a solution out of the box thinker. But I think the thing I learnt from Steve is, you know, being your authentic self, you know, and that's what he is in droves, and people love him for that. And I think that's really important. Don't try to be anybody else. It's quite hard work.
Love those observations, and that's actually, it's the hardest but simplest thing to be as yourself.
Yeah.
And being comfortable, not hiding, you know, aspects of which you may feel vulnerable, and
I think that's only come for me later in life, actually.
I agree.
You know, in my 20s, I probably tried to be different aspects of different people, you know.
Chameleon sort of thing, trying to blend in certain scenarios. I think it's natural though, isn't it?
Definitely. And then the one person I didn't mention was from my recruitment days, which was a lady called Helen Ackroyd, who was the first successful female that I'd seen. And she did it in a hugely professional and assertive, but without being aggressive manner. And, you know, I learned a lot from Helen, that you can be successful, but you don't need to be, you know, aggressive. You can do that in a confident, professional manner. So I learned a lot from her as well. Good
balance of influence there.
Yeah.
Your career, your inspiration, the things that you love doing, and I think it comes sort of shining out. And nice to hear as well that you have made mistakes and little cock-ups along the way, but learn from it. Have you got any regrets? Would you do anything differently in your career? Would you take another move? Would you have done something else?
I think the only regret I've got, and this goes back to I'm not a risk taker. The only slight regret I've got is I never actually ran my own business or went into partnership with somebody to do that. Because I never had that confidence, or I never had that appetite for risk to do that. But I should have done, I think. It would be my only regret.
Doesn't have to be one. Never say never.
No, that's true. That is true.
Never say never.
Yeah.
Never say never. Well, if that's one thing, then that's a reflection, and
yeah.
You know.
But that's the only one. You know, other than that, you know, I've had a great career. I'm still having a great career. You know, I've always thought about what would I have done if I'd not gone into cyber, and I think I would have been a detective. I think.
You'd make a good one.
Yeah.
I think I'd be driving a minibus or something like that. I really enjoy driving.
Yeah.
So like with, you know, people around for some reason anyway.
Little
around
social kind of.
Social, exactly.
Or property. I do enjoy design stuff, but.
Yeah. No, I know you've got a little passion for development and property as well, which is good. So look, you know me. My thing that floats my boat is music. You know, we're promoting new artists, new music on the podcast as well, part of the CyberSoul theme.
Yeah.
What is the music that gets you up for a dance?
So I think.
And I've seen you dance, so come on.
It's usually maybe after a couple of drinks, but it tends to be influenced by my children these days.
Wow.
So yeah, I know.
Continue.
So it's so I'm finding Dua Lipa and some Calvin Harris stuff is merging into my kind of dance routines. So yeah, but yeah.
And what would you stick on in the car? What would be the thing you go, right, I'm on a journey. What did you listen to on the way up? This is where you don't say
like,
something crap.
Yeah, this is kind of... I listen to the news. How sad is that?
I think I would do that as well. I love a bit of working man's radio. I love a bit of talk sport.
Yeah.
You know where you
It's kind
stand.
exactly.
Oh, mate. Oh, look, Jane, it's been brilliant
Oh, it's
catching
been
up with you
great. It's been
today.
really
Lovely
good.
to see
Thanks
you.
for having me.
My pleasure. I'm blessed that you've come on. So, hey, look, thanks for your time. All right, see you soon.
Yeah,
Take
see you
care.
soon. Bye.